Now, we've been talking about Easter and the importance and the significance of it. Jesus, his death and his resurrection bringing hope to all mankind. But when I go to the supermarket with my kids, I am bombarded with just an array of Easter bunnies and chocolate eggs and all this chocolate everywhere I look. It's gotten to the point where I actually avoid taking them to the supermarket with me. In fact, I order my groceries online. But we have the pleasure of being joined this morning by Wynand Jacobs from Family Life to talk about how we can actually talk about the real reason for Easter with our kids. Good morning, Wynand. Great to have you with us.
Kia ora.
Morena. Good morning, Tom. Hey, Kat.
So how do we approach this in the middle, of public holidays, plans, chocolate? How can we make the most of this Easter weekend in terms of communicating the message at home, perhaps through traditions? Have you got some thoughts around this?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that because I was reflecting on this conversation coming up, and a story that came to mind was from the book of Joshua. Now, you might be thinking, how does Easter link to the book of Joshua? So I'm glad you asked, but
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so there's this phrase, right? So when Joshua leads the Israelites through the Jordan, we have the whole story similar to the Red Sea opening up, the Jordan actually opening up, and the Israelites going through on dry ground. But God specifically instructs Joshua that the priests pick up stones, and they actually built an altar on the place they went. And so these stones would have come from the river, and an altar would be built on the other side of the river. And then this scripture, it's in Joshua 4:21. It says, "When your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, 'What are these stones?' then you shall inform your children, saying, 'Israel crossed this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed, just as the Lord your God had done to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed.'" And I find it so encouraging that, God actually built a symbol of remembrance. And I think in our culture today, we often forget the importance of storytelling, right? Whereas, God specifically instructs the Israelites, make this heap of stones, basically, so that when your children ask, you tell them the story.
So are you suggesting I give my kids some Easter stones instead of Easter eggs?
There we go. You got it. That's exactly where I was going. So here's the thing, right? Our culture recognizes eggs, and I don't think that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing. And so the way we then use those eggs as an opportunity to tell our kids this story, I think is really important. As Christians, of the first place of discipleship, I believe really needs to be in the home. How we pass our faith onto our children really matters. And, when all the hype is out there, all the Easter eggs, the thing about Easter bunny and whatnot, it's how we use those things we're confronted with in the culture and actually speak to our kids about the story. The importance of Jesus going to the cross, the death and the resurrection, and what that means to us. And obviously age appropriate. Our son is now he turned 3 in February. And this is something I really wanted to do last year, but he was still a little bit young. So at Family Life, we have these, we call them resurrection eggs. And it's basically like a tray of eggs, plastic eggs in the sense, with these little miniature symbols in them, like artifacts. And so what you'll do is you'll hide these eggs, and your kids will go for a treasure hunt. And once they find the egg, you actually tell a story around each little object that's in those eggs. And so, it's a bit of fun. It's doing the Easter egg hunt. But again, it gives you that opportunity to tell your kids the story in a way that they're going to remember, and they're going to have fun with engaging with it. So, unfortunately, we're all sold out this year, but we'll get some more stock in for Easter next year. And I think if someone would, like to order some, they call it resurrection eggs. I think Manna also distributes them. I'm not sure if they're sold out, but they've been very popular this year. But I mean, in essence, you can become creative around how you use the season of Easter, the rhythm of hey, we're going into Easter weekend, it's a long weekend, it's celebration. But let's make it about more than a holiday, and let's remember that, our kids need to hear the story from us around Easter, and how that was God's redemptive plan for the world, and what that means to us as their parents. And they will hold on to those things, years and years in the future.
Such a great idea, resurrection eggs, and the fact that we're communicating, new life through the gospel and the way that we understand it in our faith and our family. And I guess the only challenge there is trying to explain why rabbits lay eggs. Am I right?
Yeah, well, that's where you need to become creative, right? But I guess, if donkeys can speak and fish can swallow people in the God we serve, nothing's impossible, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, it is taking the opportunity, isn't it, to tell the story, and to do that every opportunity that we get, because it really is. It's so much more than a story too, isn't it? And the privilege to be able to communicate that within our families and to our kids. Wynand Jacobs with us from Family Life today. And Wynand, if people want to find you guys online, they can just head along to the website.
That's right. familylife.nz will get you there.
And resources and bits and pieces there in terms of, resources to help you with your relationships and your family. So Wynand, thanks again for your time on the show this morning.